No? My name is Troy McClure. You may remember me from tweets like, "Get that bitch off the stage. Get her fired."
What have I in the
Oh,
way
it's
there?
recording, is it? How often have you been told that you can't say that? In 2019 Ireland, this is what we refer to as political correctness. George Carlin said political correctness is fascism pretending to be manners. But what happens when the rules around political correctness become law? Can you say that you live in a free democratic society when you can be imprisoned for your speech? The most egregious violation of our human rights is to try and control how a person thinks, to make thought a crime. Think about that. But that's exactly what the Irish government intend to do as they seek to amend hate speech laws in Ireland. As I speak, we're in the midst of a consultation period on hate speech. Some might say, considering we're in a consultation period, that no decision has been made by the government to restrict our fundamental right to speak. Unfortunately, this is far from true. To illustrate this point, we need only look at the government's online survey, which includes 5 leading questions that are framed in such a way that you cannot answer them without acknowledging that Ireland has a hate crime problem that needs to be controlled. Do they sound impartial to you? Because they don't sound impartial to me. If this wasn't bad enough, at the start of October, the Garda Commissioner Drew Harris publicised the fact that he had created, irrespective of the fact that he is not a legislator and he has absolutely no remit to create legislation, but he confirmed that he had created a new working definition for hate crime. This definition is to be used by all Gardaí to determine whether a crime could have been motivated by hate, hostility or prejudice. This may seem innocuous. However, an examination of the new working definition confirms that it introduces several new elements not found in Irish legislation. It also provides a very good indication on how the government intends to move forward with hate speech laws in Ireland, which is by means of a perception test. If you think this sounds very subjective, you'd be right. So whether or not a person will be charged with a criminal offence will be determined according to the belief or opinion of the alleged victim or any other person based on how things seem. If you want to know how well this test works, we can look to the UK for a classic example of how hate speech laws will be utilised. In 2018, a white female in her 70s was investigated for a hate crime after she beeped her car horn at an Afro-Caribbean female who she thought was taking too long to fill her car at a petrol station. As the alleged victim perceived the beeping to be motivated by hate due to her skin colour, the UK police were legally obliged not only to investigate the incident as a hate crime, but also to record it as a hate crime. In this particular case, it was determined that the incident was not motivated by hate. However, the statistical recording of the incident as a hate crime is not altered by any subsequent finding that the incident was not motivated by hate. So when I hear that in the UK hate crime figures have doubled in the last 5 years, I seriously question the legitimacy of those figures. How hate crime is recorded is particularly relevant because these are the figures that the government, the Gardaí and the Irish media will use to manipulate the Irish public into giving up their fundamental right to think and speak freely, all in the name of anti-fascism. Nevertheless, some people may still think that as a society it could only be a good thing to encourage love not hate. Fortunately, to disprove this point, we can look to other countries who currently have a more controlling PC culture than Ireland to understand just what words or topics may become off limits were more extensive hate speech laws to be introduced. At the University of Michigan, they have labelled the words crazy, illegal alien and ghetto as offensive. The British Medical Association state that we should no longer call pregnant women expectant mothers, as it might offend transgender people. The University of West Virginia wants students to stop using terms boyfriend or girlfriend as they consider them too gender specific. The term overweight is considered offensive, so the politically correct term is people of size. The word American is also considered offensive, so there is a call to use resident of the United States. In the UK, a Labour MP is campaigning to make catcalling a hate crime, while another MP wishes to prevent people from using private groups for chat on social media. Trinity College Dublin is phasing out the word freshman because it's not inclusive enough. A Fingal County Councillor for People Before Profit opposed flying the Irish flag in Ireland, saying that it might offend foreign nationals. Many on the left now suggest that nationalism is hateful and racist, and so they suggest nationalism leads to Nazism. The latest target of the progressive left are the words mother and father. The left wants to replace them with parent 1 and parent 2, and they have already done so in some European countries. Ask yourself if this is the type of society you want to live in, the type of society you want your children to inherit. Speech is thought verbalized, so any law which seeks to limit your right to speak is in effect a thought crime. For most of history, saying something that contradicted those in power was a crime, in many cases punishable by death. But people gradually realised that we are not truly free unless we can speak our mind, decide the words we use, and criticise those in power. This way of thinking became a founding pillar of Western democracy. Free speech means you can speak your mind and the government can't stop you or jail you. It doesn't mean that people have to listen or agree. Until recently, freedom of speech or freedom of expression was not left or right wing, but it was a universally agreed principle. However, in recent times, the left have escalated their campaign to use political correctness to limit speech through a process of 1. Change how people speak, 2. Change how people act, 3. Change how people think. The aim of political correctness is to make certain topics socially off limits. This is bad enough, but imagine a society where certain topics become legally off limits. And there you have the alarming difference between political correctness and hate speech laws. Something that was once frowned upon or had the potential to make you a social pariah could now result in you being jailed. This is not freedom. In Ireland, the government have recently been pushing an agenda to make any discussion on immigration politically incorrect and racist. As the left pushes their version of acceptable language on everyone, they show glaring hypocrisy by openly judging a person's right to an opinion as being based on their skin colour, sexual orientation or gender. One of the claims made about political correctness is that it makes language less offensive. But our freedom of speech is the gift of those who challenged authority and gave offence. The left consistently argue that those who advocate for free speech wish to retain this right to permit their abuse on persons based on their differing race, sexual orientation, gender or religious beliefs, and also presuppose that minority groups are so weak that they're incapable of challenging criticism. This is what is referred to as the soft bigotry of low expectations. In my case, I want to retain my natural human right to think and speak in order to challenge ideas and opinions I disagree with. If we search historical records, we can see that criticism and challenge of the status quo was vital in achieving every significant advancement our societies have made. In the 15th century, Copernicus offended the church when he said the earth was not the centre of the universe. In the 19th century, the theory of evolution by Charles Darwin received similar treatment. In the Soviet Union in the 1920s, anyone that disagreed with the party was shipped to a gulag in Siberia where millions died. In the United States in the 1920s, it was considered offensive to suggest that women should have the vote. And it only became socially acceptable in the last decade to suggest persons of the same sex should be able to marry. These advancements and many, many more were considered highly offensive at their time. The lessons of history that led to our modern freedoms were paid for with the blood of millions that died in regimes before these freedoms existed. This led to the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, which states that everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive and impart information and ideas. If you want to fight to protect your right to free speech, join me as a concerned citizen at the free speech rally outside Dáil, Éireann from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday, December 14, 2019. This is a silent, peaceful, non-partisan rally. I encourage you to bring whatever flags or posters symbolise your right to free speech. The greatest gift you can pass to your children is their liberty, and freedom of speech is integral to this because it is the right that underpins all other freedoms. My name is Tracey O'Mahoney, and I am the author of my thoughts and words, and I will not relinquish this right to a tyrannical, overreaching government. Will you? In 2019, what was I going to say? You can't say that. In 2019, Ireland, hate speech laws will be introduced.
It's a bit tilted forward. Go on, keep
in
talking
order
shit.
to... Imagine now, when I'm not reading off the screen, I don't know any of this shit.
Christ.
Jesus, we're just doing a sound check. What are you doing?
There's too much of a gap.
Just shut up a second. It's a sound check. Say something.
In 2019,
Stop touching
Ireland,
it.